Junior Motorsports could be entering the 2025 Daytona 500, and Kurt Busch has been cleared to return to racing. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed for today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just show them straight those really quickly. First, going to take a look at a couple paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just show them straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Michael McDowell's 2025 B last year's scheme that we'll see in 2 races in 2025. The scheme's pretty cool in my opinion. Do like the colors on it, and it's really cool to see the B last who will continue work with Michael McDowell in 2025. The scheme looks pretty solid in my opinion. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Williams Walsh's 2025 Sound Gear scheme that we'll see in a lot of races in 2025. Scheme looks okay in my opinion. I don't think JGR absolutely set the world on fire with this one. The colors do look solid though. We'll see what Williams Walsh can do with this paint scheme in 2025. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Suburban Propane. As it was reported by Jeff Gluck yesterday morning that Suburban Propane has become the official propane of NASCAR. I never would have thought as a fan we ever get official propane of NASCAR, but here we are. I think Suburban Propane is one of the biggest propane companies in the United States, so it's a very interesting partnership to say the least, but pretty cool to see that Suburban Propane will become the official propane in NASCAR in 2025. Very interesting stuff, in my opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Martinsville Xfinity Series race. As they have the title sponsor for the spring race set, it's going to be called the Marine Corps 250. This is in partnership with the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. Very interesting sponsorship name. I think it's the first time in many, many years that basically a U.S. military branch has sponsored a NASCAR race. Very interesting stuff. And I think it's also kind of cool to see the Marine Corps will be sponsoring the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Martinsville. Pretty awesome stuff and pretty cool to see overall, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Tyler Tomasi. As it was announced last night that Tyler Tomasi will be returning to the Raymond Brothers Racing organization in the Craftsman Truck Series in 2025, driving the number 2 truck. He only will run 2 races with the team as of now in 2025. However, depending on sponsorship and funding for Tyler coming down, he could run more races in 2025. Last year in 2024, Tyler Tomasi made starts in the main ARCA Series, I believe, for the Rain Brothers Racing organization. Also only made 2 or 3 starts in the Truck Series last year with the team as well, including at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And I don't think he really set the world on fire, unfortunately. But Tyler Tomasi does have a decent chance and opportunity. I know that Raymond wants to be a team that wants to be very successful long term. I just don't know Tyler Tomasi is going to be that guy who's really going to build that program up in 2025. That being said, this is a really good opportunity for Tyler. I think the goal is just get as much experience as possible and try to finish the races and not get involved in a crash or an incident this year. A good move for him, in my opinion, to get a few more races. If he does well enough, this could lead to a great opportunity down the road. Glad to see that Tyler Tomasi will be driving for the Rain Brothers Racing organization in 2025. I would not be surprised if he drives that 34 truck or the 30 or the 22 at some point also in 2025. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chili's. As it was reported by Adam Stern yesterday morning that Chili's is set to return to Spire Motorsports in 2025. Remember, it was announced that Chili's will be sponsoring Kyle Kirkwood and a ton of races in IndyCar in 2025. Remember, Chili's has a really big association with the TWG Global Group, which TWG Global are part owners of the Spire Motorsports organization. Chili's being back with Spire is huge. There was talk about him leaving and following Corey LaJoie, but they, of course, worked with Corey LaJoie last year, and I think they also worked with Justin Haley in a one-off or two-off in 2024. Question will be how many races are they going to sponsor Spire Motorsports in the number 7 team in 2025. That's kind of up in the air at this point. My best guess is they're going to sponsor potentially Justin Haley for a couple races, including the Daytona 500. We'll just have to wait and see, but unlike some sponsors that are leaving, like potentially Dr. Pepper, and of course Hooters leaving, it's good to see that Chili's won't be leaving the organization. We'll be sticking around with TWG Global. Glad to see they're not going anywhere, and we'll be sticking around with the Spire Motorsports Group and the same organization in 2025. Really good and exciting stuff overall, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mike Hillman Jr. As it was announced last night that Mike Hillman Jr. will return to being the crew chief for Spencer Boyd in 2025 on the number 76 truck for Freedom Racing Enterprises. Mike Hillman Jr. was the crew chief for the second half of 2024 after leaving the Nice Motorsports organization and after kind of struggling with Bailey Curry at the start of 2024. He went to work with Spencer Boyd. And while Spencer Boyd did not set the world on fire in 2024, this team did show a lot of improvement, and there was a lot more pace and a lot more speed shown on the racetrack by this team. They started qualifying inside the top 30 a lot more consistently, though there were times where only 32 or 33 trucks showed up. But I feel like this team showed a lot more improvement, despite the kind of different from when Jeff Hammond was on the box. I think this team did show a lot of improvement in 2024. And I think that Mike Hillman Jr., who's been a veteran crew chief, who's won a lot of races with drivers like Chase Briscoe, been pretty competitive with drivers like Landon Castle over the years. He's worked with many drivers. I think he almost worked with Todd Bodine back in the day as well and nearly won a championship. So I think Mike Hillman Jr. is going to help this program in a pretty big way in 2025. I don't expect Spencer Boyd to be a major threat and serious contender. I think some top 20s could definitely be possible. They can continue building up and bringing some pace and speed. We'll just have to wait and see what happens in regards to that, but pretty cool nonetheless to see that Mike Hillman Jr. is back working with Spencer Boyd in 2025, and I think he's going to do a solid and pretty good job working with them. We'll see if Spencer Boyd can run a lot better, and we'll see if Mike Hillman Jr. can help him accomplish that in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Trackhouse Racing. As it was reported by Adam Stern yesterday afternoon that Trackhouse Racing will have a consistent color scheme for 2025 across their NASCAR Cup Series team, their Xfinity Series stuff they're doing with Junior Motorsports, and also with their MotoGP stuff. The constant color they're going to have is blue and Dayglow. For a long time, Trackhouse either had like a white background or a black background on their cars. Now they're going to have different looking colors for 2025. I gotta say, it's really cool. They're keeping everything kind of very, very similar for 2025. I know people like Kyle Sykes said they really like the old look of what they had, but he also said it's not a bad decision to make changes, and I don't disagree with that. So now you're going to have a lot of these paint schemes looking very, very similar. Obviously, we'll probably see some of that white look that we see for Shane Van Gisbergen's WeatherTech cars and some of the other companies that are going to associate with the team. Probably also very similar to the Wendy's car that Helio Castroneves is going to use in this year's Daytona 500. So I think it's really nice to see that we're seeing some changes for Trackhouse Racing going into this year. I think Trackhouse changing things up going into year number 5, because it's crazy, this is the 5th year for Trackhouse already. Makes a lot of sense. We'll be seeing that for the Connor Zillage, Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, and their MotoGP guys as well. Very interesting change, and kind of cool to see that Trackhouse Racing will kind of have a little bit of a different look to it and a different approach for their team in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about McLaren. As it was reported by Marshall Pruitt from Racer Magazine yesterday that McLaren is looking toward a return to prototype racing in the not-so-distant future. They could be looking to get back in 2025, maybe in the World Endurance Championship, but it seems like their goal could potentially be coming back in 2026. We have been seeing a massive return and basically kind of a hype up of prototype racing in the last couple of years. We know that Ford has been very interested in getting back into GTP. Of course, Zach Brown does have association with multiple organizations over there in IMSA. He kind of owns one of the teams, and I believe the second class as well. And I think he eventually wants to bring that team up to the top of the class and change the name from what they currently have to McLaren, because Zach Brown, of course, does compete for the organization that he is driven for, which, of course, had quite a bit of success over the years. And McLaren has been expanding their horizons. We know they kind of bought in officially, now have full confirmation on having the IndyCar team they have. And we've seen the McLaren team in Formula One become one of the most successful organizations in recent memory. And they're starting to show a lot of speed. And I think there's a really good chance that Lando Norris could win a Formula One championship in 2025. I don't think he was right enough to beat Max Verstappen at the end of 2024. So I think that McLaren is in a really solid position long term, and I think that they'll be able to get whatever drivers they want to. And this could lead Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri an opportunity if they decide to leave Formula One in the near future, though I don't think it's going to happen. It could lead to them having a chance and opportunity to maybe down the road go to prototype racing if they do decide to go ahead and retire in the near future. I don't think anybody wants that, but now they've got an outlet and opportunity here to go to a different series if they decide to retire. So really interesting stuff in my opinion, and pretty good to see that McLaren will likely be bringing back a prototype team in the not so distant future. It's been a long time since they've been in prototype racing. Looks like they're very interested in getting back into that here in the not so distant future. Really good stuff in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Colton Herta. Now, yesterday was the first of multiple media days and content days for IndyCar for the 2025 season, as we're about a month and a half away from IndyCar kicking off on March 2nd on the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. And one question that a lot of people have been having is around the future of Colton Herta in IndyCar. Colton Herta's name has been brought up as a potential possible candidate to go to Formula One in 2026 with the Andretti Global Organization. Well, there was an article that came out, I think, from the race.com where they talked a little bit about this. And Colton Herta kind of speaks on his future in IndyCar and Formula One. He says, if F1 happens, it happens. It is what it is. If teams still want me in Formula One and the Cadillac team wants me to get into Formula One, then I will take that opportunity and chance. But if it doesn't work out, hey, I still get to compete in IndyCar, which really isn't a bad deal. Colton Herta is in a really good position in his career. Of course, he does need to get the super license, which I think he, especially after a really good end to 2024, winning a lot of races at the end of the season, including that race at Nashville Super Speedway at the end of the year, he was able to achieve the 40 super license points that he can to be able to acquire a super license to go to Formula One. And his name has been brought up as a favorite to go to the Cadillac Formula One team in 2026 when the team starts up next year. And Colton Herta would be the American driver that everyone believes would be the driver, even though Connor Zilich's name hasn't brought up as also another potential possibility for the Cadillac team. Colton Herta really doesn't have a major difficult decision here. If he wants to stay in IndyCar in 2026, he can absolutely do that and continue having a lot of success, which I think he will continue being one of the most successful drivers in IndyCar. But if you've got an opportunity to go to Formula One, I would definitely take that chance, especially if Cadillac wants you to be over there in the next couple of years. I think you should definitely take that chance if you are Colton Herta. And plus, Colton Herta may never get another opportunity to go to Formula One. He will be 25 or 26 at the end of 2026, and he will be in his mid-20s. And you usually don't have a driver once you get past their mid-20s at this point getting into Formula One. So I think for Colton Herta's sake, I think if you got the opportunity to go to Formula One, you got to take that chance. I really hope that he kind of takes that chance going forward. But if it doesn't happen, hey, he's still got a good team to work with and a good team to go to in 2026, which will be the Andretti Global team if he doesn't decide to go to Formula One. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Derek Finley. As it was confirmed yesterday afternoon that Derek Finley will be the official crew chief for Ryan Preece in 2025. Derek Finley was a former crew chief for Front Row Motorsports back in the late 2010s and has been in the industry for many, many years. He also crew chiefed the number 60 Stage 60 car in 2024 when it, of course, did attempt the Daytona 500, which is with David Reagan, which, of course, they were able to qualify in on Wednesday evening. Derek Finley's been around for a very, very long time, and he's going to be working with Ryan Preece, who, of course, joins the new number 60 team for the team in 2025. I think Derek Finley is going to bring a lot to the table for Ryan Preece this year. I really think that these two are going to gel very, very well together. And I think that Ryan Preece is also going to have a career year in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2025. This is going to be the first team that has been a top-level team in the NASCAR Cup Series. Sure, he's going to say, well, what about a team like Stewart-Haas Racing? Well, Stewart-Haas Racing was not a top-tier team when he got over there. Let's just be real and honest. Sure, they were a Tier 1 Ford organization, but they weren't a top-tier team. RFK Racing is a genuine top-tier team that continues to get better and better on a year-by-year basis. That's why they are expanding to a 3-car operation. And, of course, Kroger's coming over to sponsor pretty much every single race in 2025. I think Derek Finley is going to help Ryan Preece show a lot of good pace and speed in 2025, and I do look for this team to be really, really quick this year. So we'll see how they end up performing, but again, I really think that Ryan Preece and Derek Finley are going to gel well together this upcoming year, and I look for Ryan Preece to be very quick and have a good season this year. I look for him to contend for top 10s on a consistent basis, especially at short tracks, and I could see Ryan Preece pulling off an upset win before the end of 2025. I think it's very likely that this does end up happening, and I think that Derek Finley coming over to help Ryan Preece makes a lot of sense. It's a really great and massive opportunity for him. Glad to see that Derek Finley and Ryan Preece will get the chance and opportunity to work together. Hoping they can have a lot of success and show a lot of really great pace and a lot of strong speed in 2025. My prediction is that Ryan Preece likely finishes inside the bottom top 20 in the standings in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Ryan Sieg. As it was officially confirmed yesterday afternoon that Ryan Sieg will be returning to RSS Racing in 2025, driving the number 39 car. SciAps will sponsor Ryan Sieg for every single race in 2025, and Matt Noyce is going to be the crew chief just like he was in 2024. This is really, really good news to hear. Ryan Sieg in 2024 had a very solid season and kind of comeback here from 2023 where the 39 team really struggled for a majority of the 2023 season. In 2024, Ryan Sieg really had a career year. He showed a lot of really good pace, especially when he was getting Stewart-Haas cars. He was very quick. He almost won a few races in 2024. He could have won Texas Motor Speedway, had probably the fastest car near the end of that race, but unfortunately made some mistakes, was going way too high up the track, and Sam Mayer got by him, and Sam Mayer beat him by like 2 or 3 1/1000 of a second coming across the line. Then you think about races like Las Vegas in the fall. He had the fastest car by a mile at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but could not get by AJ Allmendinger at the end of the day. That caution came out for Sammy Smith, which was extremely questionable, and unfortunately lost the race because of that. He was probably going to win that race against Allmendinger, but of course, like I said, he got kind of screwed over by Sammy Smith, and Sammy Smith probably should have gotten a penalty for sitting on the racetrack, despite the fact he definitely could have continued going. I think he was full of crap. When he said he couldn't get going, I think he was full of crap. But I think for Ryan Sieg, the goal this year is to win a race. And I think he is one of the borderline drivers who I think does have a chance and opportunity to make the playoffs this year. Because I think the RSS Racing organization has been a lot quicker. So we'll see how Ryan Sieg can truly end up doing in 2025 with the RSS Racing organization. But this is a really great opportunity for Ryan. I think him being back with the team is really great to see. There's going to be a lot of good competition, though, in the Xfinity Series this year because you've got a lot of good rookies coming up. Carson Quaffle, Connor Zilisch, Christian Eckes, Nick Sanchez, other people like Daniel Dye moving up this year, Taylor Gray, William Sawalch. You've got Justin Allgaier trying to defend his championship. You've, of course, do have other people like Harrison Burton, who is replacing Haley Deegan in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year. And you might get some all-star drivers down the road, like an Eric Almirola coming back, and probably some other Cup guys like Shane Van Gisbergen and Ross Chastain, who, of course, are going to be running in that number 9 for Junior Motorsports this year. So we'll see how Ryan Sieg can end up doing, but I think Ryan Sieg could have a really solid and good year. We'll see how he can do with RSS Racing once again in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Ryan Truex. There was an article that came out from Jeff Gluck yesterday that's gotten a lot of talking on social media, as Ryan Truex did confirm to the media that he does not have any races planned for 2025 at this time with Joe Gibbs Racing. However, he is sticking around with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025 as he has become the reserve driver for the team, and the transition had already begun to start at the end of 2024, right in the last few races of the season. Last year in 2024, Ryan Truex had a really strong year. He got 2 wins, the first time he's had a multi-win season, won at Dover early in the year, and had one of the strongest cars in the field, and also did win at Daytona National Speedway, I believe leading the most laps of anybody in the field that night. For me, it's a little bit frustrating that Ryan Truex does not have a full-time ride in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition with Joe Gibbs Racing. However, you've got to bring a big pocketbook, and you look at the drivers they've got over there at Joe Gibbs Racing this year. Brandon Jones has Menard sponsorship. His dad is CEO of Ring. William Sawalch, his father's CEO of Starkey. and that being Brandon Sawalch, who's the CEO of that company, and that's why he's over there with Sound Gear, that being William Sawalch. And Taylor Gray's father owns a major oil company that's worth like billions of dollars at this point. That's why Ryan Truex is not full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, which is a great shame because Ryan Truex deserves to be full-time in NASCAR competition. I hate the fact he goes into the reserve role this year, and I really wish he would get a few starts. Now, I would have to think he could make some starts in the All-Star car before the end of the year. We already know that Justin Bonzor is going to drive 5 races in that car, and there's some other drivers that I would not be surprised to get behind a wheel, like Eric Almirola, potentially guys in Cup like Ty Gibbs and Denny Hamlin also, same with Christopher Bell. I think there's going to be some big names who could get behind the wheel of that seat. But again, it just frustrates me that someone who is as good as Ryan Truex is, who showed a lot of really good pace throughout 2024, who like I said, believe should be full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, who I think deserves to be full-time in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition because of the fact he doesn't bring a massive pocketbook to the team. He can't go full-time, and I think it's, like I said, super frustrating that someone who is as good as he is cannot go full-time. We'll see if Ryan Truex can get at least some races in 2025, but again, it sounds very unlikely at this point. And while I'm disappointed, I'm unfortunately not surprised to see this news. Again, I hope this changes where we can see talent kind of become the big thing overall. But as of right now, Ryan Truex, like I've already said, will not have a ride with Joe Gibbs Racing to race, but will still be with the Joe Gibbs Racing organization in 2025 with the team. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Fox Sports. As it was officially confirmed yesterday afternoon that Fox Sports has officially announced their IndyCar booth for 2025. So here's the IndyCar booth. Will Buxton is going to be the lead commentator for Fox Sports in 2025, while James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell will be back in the booth like they were with NBC. Let's get to the two other people first, that being James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell. These are no-brainers. James Hinchcliffe has been a really, really good commentator for the last few years since taking over from Paul Tracy at the end of 2021. James Hinchcliffe always brings a lot of energy and always brings a lot of excitement to the table. I really think that James Hinchcliffe is going to do an exceptional job as a commentator. And then Townsend Bell, similar thing to James Hinchcliffe, but he's going to be the oldest person in the booth. Townsend Bell's been in a commentary booth since around 2014 or 2015, and honestly, he's been a really great addition to NBC for many, many years. And I think that these two are going to gel very well together like they have for the last couple of years. And finally, Will Buxton's the interesting one. Will Buxton has done commentary before. The last time, I think it's been about 10 years ago when he was doing commentary for, I think, Formula 2 back in the day. But Will Buxton's done commentary for years, and he knows what he is doing on a mic. And I think he's going to bring a fresh face and bring a lot of that energy that I think a lot of people are looking for. And Will Buxton knows his stuff. He's done coverage for IndyCar in the past. He did work with Marshall Pruitt back in the day, and he's worked with a lot of people in the industry, in the IndyCar industry especially, for many, many years. Overall, I think this trio of individuals is going to do a very, very good job. Now, the question will be, how will the broadcast be for Fox? Are they going to be as clunky as they've been on the NASCAR side of things, which we don't know the full broadcast yet, and the broadcast team yet for 2025 on NASCAR's coverage, but we do know the fact that of the IndyCar booth, and I got to say, what we've seen with Fox so far in their coverage, I think it's been really, really good. And I think compared to NASCAR side of things, I think a lot of things that Fox has been doing with the IndyCar side, I think has actually been really, really good. And I think it's been a major pleasant surprise to see because you know how frustrated I've been with Fox's coverage on the NASCAR end. So I think they're doing things correctly, they're doing things right, and they're doing things that personally the way I think they should be doing them. So I think it's really great to see this overall, that the IndyCar booth has finally been confirmed and announced for 2025, and glad to see we finally got that out of the way. This has been the rumor booth, but I'm glad to see after months and months of speculation on who's going to be in these booths for 2025, I'm glad to see we can finally get that out there, get it off our chest, and I think the booth for IndyCar this year is really solid and really, really strong, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Anthony Alfredo. As it was officially announced yesterday morning that Anthony Alfredo will join Young's Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2025, driving the number 42 car. This has been rumored over the course of the last couple of weeks, and we did a video covering this on the channel yesterday. We do know his crew chief is going to be Andrew Abbott, and Ranco and Weiss, which have been loyal sponsors of Anthony Alfredo over the course of the last couple of years in Xfinity Series competition. They will follow Anthony Alfredo over to this team in 2025. It wasn't confirmed in the press release, but if I'm not mistaken, from what I have heard, it sounds like this team is going to be getting a much tighter ECR alliance in 2025, and they're going to be getting engines from ECR this season. Now, Young's Motorsports last year with Leland Honeyman Jr. showed some really decent pace at times, but they also struggled throughout the year. But you have to remember they were a new team in NASCAR Xfinity competition, and for a team that just really started out, honestly, they did a pretty good job. And if they are truly getting an ECR alliance, I can definitely see Anthony Alfredo having a really strong year. Anthony Alfredo, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated drivers in NASCAR on the track. Last year of Our Motorsports, he took that Our Motorsports car and had a very, very good year. He showed some really good speed, finished 15th in the standings, got a couple top 10s throughout the year, could have won a few races, and just had a few really strong qualifying performances also in 2024. And I really think that Anthony and Young's is a team that's really setting up for a really great future. Now, what are my expectations for Anthony Alfredo in 2025? Well, I think Anthony Alfredo will have a really good chance and opportunity to finish inside the top 20 in the standings, and I could see Anthony having a chance and opportunity to go out there and win a super speedway race in 2025. I don't see him contending on a week-by-week basis for wins, and I don't see the team even contending on a week-by-week basis for top 10s, especially with how competitive the NASCAR Xfinity Series field is going to be this year. That being said, though, I really think that Anthony Alfredo could have a really strong and great season in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I think my prediction is he's going to be around that top 20 in the points area. He's going to have a lot of competition. People like Matt DiBenedetto being back, Parker Retzlaff being over there at Alpha Prime Racing, Brennan Poole, who I believe finished in the top 20 in the standings in 2024. I think that should be the goal this year, and I think most drivers in that middle pack group are going to be looking to try to be one of those next big teams, and I think Young's does have a lot of potential. I think Anthony's going to have a pretty good season, and I think that this is a really good signing and a really strong pairing going into this year and season. So I'm overall really excited about this, all things considered, and I cannot wait to see how Anthony Alfredo can end up doing with the Young's Motorsports team and organization in 2025. I think, like I said, this is a good pairing. I think Alfredo gets around 4 or 5 top 10s, and I think, like I said, he probably ends up finishing inside the top 20 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series standings this year. So again, really good signing in my opinion, and pretty cool to see that Anthony Alfredo will be joining Young's Motorsports in 2025. Of course, he's also going to run an attempt to qualify for this year's Daytona 500, which of course he did make it last year. I think Alfredo also has a really good chance and opportunity there to make the 2025 Daytona 500. We'll see how he can end up doing and how he ends up truly performing in the 2025 NASCAR Xfinity season. See if he also can make the Daytona 500 with Beer Motorsports later this year and this season. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the CW. As it was officially announced yesterday morning that the CW has officially announced their 2025 broadcast lineup for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Let's begin with the booth. Adam Alexander, Jamie McMurray, and Parker Kligerman will be in the CW booth in 2025. Let's move on to pit road. Dylan Welch and Kimmy Kuhn, who did pit road work for the CW at the end of 2024, will be on pit road for the CW in 2025. And Carla Rose Gabehart will be the studio host for them in 2025. Let's start by talking about the studio host first, Carla Gabehart. Carla Gabehart has been in the industry for the last year or so. She was working with, I believe, the Dale Jr. Reloaded team over there in 2024. It's kind of unknown and unclear if she's still going to be back with them in 2025, but I gotta say this is a really great addition. We also do have to remember the fact she's done some stuff with the CW, I think covering some of the college games in North Carolina, I'm pretty sure. So I'm thinking that her coming over here makes a ton of sense, and I think that Carla is going to bring a lot to the table as a studio host. And again, she's done a really good job with the Dirty Mo Media Group over there, and I think it's a big reason why she got hired to be the studio host. That's a great addition. Moving on to pit road, Dylan Welch, Kimmy Kuhn, two really good pit reporters. Dylan Walsh has always brought a lot to the table. Of course, he's a racer as well as he's been competing in the Chillyville Nationals the last couple of nights. I think Dylan Walsh, he's done a really good job on pit road, about as good as his father was when he was on pit road for those many years. I think he's going to do an exceptional job on pit road. And Kimmy Kuhn, who's been in the industry for a very, very long time, been covering races in 2022 with NBC. This could mean she's done with NBC, but we're not entirely sure at this point. She may have commitments to both those networks, so we'll see, but she'll be on pit road with the team in 2025. And now, let's get a thing y'all want to talk about is the booth. This trio is a very strong booth for 2025, beginning with Adam Alexander. Adam Alexander, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated lead commentators in NASCAR history. When he started off with TNT that many years ago, back in 2010, I was not the biggest fan of him. But he has grown on me year by year by year. And he's always had to go with a lot of different people and work with them. And I feel like he's been able to do a really good job being a lead commentator for many, many years. And I think he's one of the more underrated ones. He brings a lot of energy and brings a lot of excitement to the booth as well. And I think he's going to continue doing that. Plus, he's so familiar with the Xfinity Series like he's been for the last 10 years. So they wanted to get the most familiar person. Now, he's going to have a really busy year in 2025, as of course, he'll be covering every single TNT race and also every single TNT and Amazon race as well, working with Dale Jr., Steve Letarte on both those networks. And I think that it just shows that the industry respects Adam Alexander a lot, because Adam Alexander's done a really good job being a lead commentator. Next, Jamie McMurray. Finally, Jamie McMurray in a broadcast booth. I've been wanting Jamie McMurray to be in a broadcast booth for a very, very long time. Jamie McMurray is so good at being a commentator. Those few races that he was in the booth in 2022, in 2023, he really brought a lot to the table. And I think he should have been in the Fox Sports booth in 2024 over Clint Porter, but I digress at this point. I'm finally glad to see that someone is being recognized. He's also going to have a little bit of recent experience, because if I'm not mistaken, I think he did that test at Rockingham with the Xfinity Series cars to try to get a little bit of experience, and I have to think he may make a start at some point in 2025, which I think would be really, really cool. And finally, Parker Kligerman. Really great decision to put him in the booth. He's got recent experience in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition, just most recently running full-time for Big Machine Racing. He's going to run the Rolex 24 this year with the Big Machine Racing organization with Lamborghinis. And I think Parker is going to also bring a lot to the table for the Xfinity Series. He really does a fantastic job on pit road. And like I've already mentioned and said, he's got recent experience being in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and competing there. And I think he is going to do an excellent job in the booth. Overall, I really, really like this booth for 2025, and I really like the team they have assembled for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I know some would have probably liked to see Rick Allen get there, which I really don't know what Rick Allen is doing for 2025. Maybe he's going to go back to Fox and be the lead commentator for the Truck Series, which, let's be real, I'd rather have him in the truck booth than Jamie Little in the truck booth at this point. No offense to Jamie Little, but Rick Allen did a lot better with the Truck Series coverage and brought a lot to the table, and I feel like he should be in the Truck Series booth. But outside of that, Rick Allen may just be done commentating as a whole, which would be wild considering Rick Allen's only, 51 or 52 years old, so he's not really that old. So it would definitely be surprising to see Rick Allen out of the lead commentary side of things going forward. But again, like I've already mentioned and said, the CW has a really strong broadcast lineup for 2025, and I think that it's going to be a really fun lineup to look at going into this year. And again, it's good to see we finally know what the broadcast lineup is going to be. There's still some broadcast lineups we have questions on, like the NBC booth for the upcoming year, and we're still waiting on some of the questions on that, but good to see that the CW has officially and finally announced their broadcast lineup for the Xfinity Series coverage in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Kurt Busch once again. Now, we talked a little bit about Kurt Busch on the channel, but it's kind of a spring to action, as it was confirmed that Kurt Busch will be returning to racing in 2025. Now, Kurt Busch has a medically cleared by doctors to make a comeback into motorsports, and he will be running the Race of Champions event, I believe, on March 23rd at Sydney, Australia, being teammates with Travis Pastrana, which, if you've never seen the Race of Champions before, the Race of Champions is one of the coolest events that happens in motorsports every single year. Many of NASCAR's greats have ran it. Carl Edwards has ran the event. Jimmy Johnson has ran the Race of Champions. Big names against people like Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard and other big names. I think even Tony Stewart has had an opportunity, though I know Kyle Busch has had an opportunity. I think Kurt Busch also has ran the race of champions before. But why is this major news? Well, Kurt Busch, we all know, has not been racing for the last few years. He's been trying to make a comeback the last couple of years to get back into racing, but unfortunately, he had not been medically cleared until now. Now, I'm not sure at this point if this means that Kurt Busch will get back to NASCAR at this point, but I think that Kurt Busch would love to come back and do a one-off in the sport. Kurt Busch, we all know, retired from full-time racing at the end of 2022 and basically tried to make a comeback in 2023, but he confirmed he retired from full-time racing at the time because doctors had not cleared him to return. He'd been open to doing some races if he had to come back. He's been interested in doing the Baja 1000, which we all know it sounds very likely he could go and do the Baja 1000 in the future, which I think that'd be really cool for him to try that out. Now, off-track stuff, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. Unfortunately, Kurt Busch was arrested for, I think, a DWI, I'm pretty sure. But it seems like he's been cleaning himself up in the last few months. He's been working with authorities and officials to keep himself clean. Could this lead Kurt Busch down the road to come back to NASCAR and make a one-off return? I could definitely see this being a possibility where he gets a chance and opportunity to drive for 2311 Racing, considering, I think if I'm not mistaken, he still does have association with 2311 Racing, and I think he could make a start in a fourth car. We do know that 2311 is going to field a fourth car at some point throughout the 2025 season for Corey Heim. Why not give the chance and opportunity to see Kurt Busch behind the wheel for at least one last time? I don't think Kurt Busch is ever going to come back and race for a championship, especially at his age, especially since it's been 3 years since he has competed in full-time. And I don't think Kurt Busch would be absolutely amazing as a full-time driver like he was in 2022. But I think Kurt Busch coming back for a one-off would just be the thing to be really awesome to see for the fans. I've seen some fans suggesting for him to get in the 66 car for MBM Motorsports. I don't think he'll run a super speedway, especially since it could be extremely dangerous, especially for concussions and all that stuff. You don't really want that. So I would think if he is to make a comeback, I could see him doing it at like a short track perhaps. I could see him doing maybe Martinsville, maybe doing a race like Bristol perhaps, maybe does an intermediate track. Who knows at this point? But I think a lot of fans like myself would like to see Kurt Busch have a little bit of closure because in my opinion, Kurt Busch without question is a first ballot Hall of Famer and should be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame with how great of a driver he's been. 35 career wins, did a lot of great things with a lot of teams. Won races with 2311 Racing, like that race at Kansas. Won races for Stuart Haas Racing pretty much every single year. One for Chip Ganassi Racing. One for organizations like RFK, which at the time was Roush Fenway Racing. One for organizations and nearly one for teams like Phoenix, and was one of the biggest reasons why Furniture Row Racing became this really solid and really strong organization. So I think it'd be, like I said, really cool to see Kurt Busch come back and do at least a one-off down the road with 2311. That's the team he'll end up driving for. He won't switch manufacturers. He won't go to different manufacturers and brandings because he's still got association with Toyota and still has association with that branding currently at the moment. But again, it'd be pretty awesome for this to happen, and I really would like to see it happen where Kurt gets the chance and opportunity to make a comeback into NASCAR. If not, it is what it is and doesn't want to come back to the sport because he left himself a bitter taste. It is what it is also. Kurt Busch has had a really great career, and Kurt Busch deserves to make the decisions that he wants to make. And I think that if Kurt does come back, again, that'd be really awesome. Come back to NASCAR. That'd be cool, Kurt. But I think that at this time, I just don't know if he is going to come back to the sport and race. We'll see what happens down the road. But again, it's really just great to see that Kurt Busch has been cleared to return to racing, get back behind the wheel of a race car in 2025. I think it's just a big win for him as a whole himself. I think that he's been cleaning himself up, has been doing better for himself recently. Just glad to see this and very happy nonetheless to see that Kurt Busch will be getting back behind the wheel of a race car in 2025. We'll see if he ever comes back to the sport, but as of right now, I don't think he's going to come back and race in NASCAR, but I think it's cool nonetheless to see that Kurt Busch is back behind the wheel and back to racing race cars in 2025. Really good to see, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Junior Motorsports. Now, there was a bulletin that was originally reported by Joseph Strigley that Junior Motorsports has a pretty big announcement that is coming later today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then later in the day, Adam Stern had reported that Junior Motorsports has an announcement scheduled for today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this could be that Junior Motorsports could be looking to enter the 2025 Daytona 500. And if you take a look at the announcement bulletin that has come out, it looks like there are going to be multiple guests that are getting involved with this announcement for the Daytona 500. We have talked about Junior Motorsports potentially getting into the NASCAR Cup Series for the last few years. All the way back to 2021, we discussed this on the channel. After Josh Berry won his first career NASCAR Xfinity Series race, Dale Jr. became the first to say that Junior Motorsports has had interest in getting into the NASCAR Cup Series. There was talk about it many, many years ago, back in the early 2010s, for them to enter a car in the NASCAR Cup Series, and it, of course, never ended up happening. And then he's been talking about for the last few years, they need money for the charter, but they've also said that they could have an investor get involved in recent months if they ever decided to come in. Now, Kelly Earnhardt Miller, who also works very closely with the team, of course, she is Dale Jr.'s sister, she is also involved with this announcement as well. Now, let's begin the speculation on what driver could be entering with for the Daytona 500. I don't think this is going to be Junior Motorsports fully entering a car in the NASCAR Cup Series for the full season. I think this is just going to be a one-off for the Daytona 500 currently at the moment. So what drivers could be behind the wheel? Let's just get some names out of the way really quickly that I don't think it is. Number one, Dale Jr. is not getting behind the wheel of a super speedway, especially with the concussion stuff that happened years ago. I don't think Dale Jr. is going to put himself in that danger. Plus, Dale Jr. will be 51 and hasn't ran a cup race in nearly a decade at this point. So I don't think Dale Jr. is getting behind the wheel. Trust me, it'd be cool to see Dale Jr. get back behind the wheel of a NASCAR Cup Series car. So I don't think that's him. Second, it's not a sponsorship deal from what people are saying. We're not going to see Budweiser come back and sponsor Dale Jr. in the Cup Series, though that'd be pretty cool if that happened as well. But I don't think it's going to be a Budweiser or a sponsorship deal. Next one that I've seen a lot of people talk about that is not happening is Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. has a ride promise currently at the moment with Joe Gibbs Racing. And I think people forget this when this was announced at the retirement announcement, but Martin Truex Jr. is remaining in the Joe Gibbs Racing campus. He's going to make starts with JGR and NASCAR Xfinity Series competition later this year. And we all know it's probably going to be a Tricon car. Now, people, and David Gillen, I know he went on Sirius and NASCAR radio. People are going to bring this up, that David Gillen said that Tricon's not building the car, which, no, they're not building the car, but Joe Gibbs is going to build the car, and it's just going to be the Tricon name with just a bunch of people from Joe Gibbs Racing there. It's just going to be Tricon Garage by name. So people saying Martin Truex Jr., I get why people want to see it, and I think Truex working with Dale Jr. would be excellent, but I don't think that's what's going on here for the Daytona 500. That's just my opinion on that, though. So those are some of the big possibilities that I don't think will happen. Let's talk about some potential drivers who could be behind the wheel of this car that I've seen. One name that I've seen is Connor Zilisch. Connor Zilisch will be definitely a very interesting choice. Connor Zilisch just turned 18 years old a couple months ago back in July, and he's going to run full-time for Junior Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year. And we all think about the Trackhouse connection. Later this year in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition, Ross Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen are going to be driving for the Junior Motorsports team for 9 races combined. Shane is going to drive 4 races, all of them being road courses, while Ross will have a very interesting schedule, including Circuit of the Americas, and of course Darlington as well, which I think both drivers could win in that car. And Connor, of course, is driving for Junior Motorsports full-time in Xfinity with that Trackhouse connection. I don't think Connor, though, is going to run the Daytona 500. It'd be cool to see that happen for Connor, but I just don't know if Connor is exactly ready at this point to run the Daytona 500. Someone bring up Carson Quaffle. No, I don't think Carson Quaffle is going to do it. I know he's got one super speedway start in the Xfinity Series at Talladega last year, but I don't think it's going to be Carson Quaffle either. Some will say maybe Sammy Smith. Sammy would be interesting, but especially since he did, to be fair, win at Talladega Super Speedway last year, but no, I don't think it's going to be Sammy Smith. I don't think it's going to be Carl Edwards or Kurt Busch. I don't think it's going to be any of those guys. The 2 names that have been said as a potential lead theories are Daniel Ricciardo and Justin Allgaier. Let's start by talking about Daniel Ricciardo. The Bobby Parsons account, which has gotten things pretty accurate so far when it comes to stuff for the Daytona 500, has mentioned Daniel Ricciardo as a possibility. Now, Daniel Ricciardo has been open to getting into NASCAR, and Bob Pockrass did kind of say and kind of predicted that he thought there was a chance and possibility that Daniel Ricciardo could potentially make a NASCAR start at some point and transition fully to NASCAR in 2025. The problem is that he would likely have to do a test in ARCA, and he would have to get approved for the Daytona ARCA test. Now, they could do what they were going to do with Helio Castroneves, and have him do an ARCA test at Talladega Super Speedway, which I still believe that is going to be happening. But I think that they would have liked him, if he was going to enter, have him do the ARCA testing. I don't think they're just going to want him jump into the deep end. And yeah, that would be absolutely blown out of the water. It would make sense, though, because Daniel Ricciardo has worked with Dale Jr. And, of course, Daniel Ricciardo is a big fan of Dale Jr. They follow each other on Instagram, which is why some brought up this connection also. And the number they mentioned is 33, and we've heard the 33 is probably going to be with Austin Hill this year in Xfinity competition. Well, not Xfinity, but Cup competition when he makes select starts for the team this year. Same with Will Brown as well. So I don't think it's going to be Daniel Ricciardo. The person who I think it's going to be is Justin Allgaier. Justin Allgaier is the one that makes the most sense here to me. Number one, Justin Allgaier has been with Junior Motorsports for a very, very long time. Justin Allgaier has made some starts in the NASCAR Cup Series as of recent, the 2024 Coca-Cola 600, when he drove the number 5 car in substitution for Kyle Larson, and he actually had really solid speed at the end of the event, finishing inside of the top 15 and getting a really good finish. Plus, Justin Allgaier has been one of Chevy's biggest priorities for a very, very long time. I know some are not going to be as excited about Justin Allgaier being behind a wheel as, let's say, Daniel Ricciardo or like a Greg Biffle press, which is not going to be Greg Biffle, by the way, though Greg Biffle did say in a comment from Breakcar, he did say that he's down to go and race it. It could happen down the road because Biffle's certainly interested in wanting to run some races in NASCAR once again, including the Daytona 500. I think it's going to be Justin Allgaier at this point. That's who I think is most likely going to be. It'd be cool if it's Daniel Ricciardo, but I'm leaning toward Justin Allgaier being the driver. But the fact that Dale Jr. and Junior Motorsports are likely going to be entering a car in the Daytona 500, I think that's the most exciting part of this, is the fact that this likely will finally happen, and I'm really looking forward to that. So, pretty cool news nonetheless. It sounds like they're going to enter a car in this year's Daytona 500, and I think it's just a big win for the sport as a whole if this does truly end up happening, where we do see them finally enter a car. So we'll see what happens in regards to that, but it sounds like Junior Motorsports may be entering a car in the 2025 Daytona 500. So that is going to be for today's Law NASCAR news and Motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go more of that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. If they do enter the car, who do you think is going to be the driver? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And who do you think, and what are your thoughts about Kurt Busch getting cleared to return to racing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, we'll discuss that Junior Motorsports announced it, depending on who the driver is going to be behind the wheel if they do enter the Daytona 500. Tomorrow on the channel, if there's not a lot of NASCAR news, we'll basically have a video on the Haas factory team and do a preview on that. Then we'll be back on Friday for a NASCAR news video. This weekend, I'm probably going to be doing an early dive into the Xfinity Series lineup, perhaps. We also could be doing another look at the NASCAR Cup lineup, as we're only a couple weeks away from that. And there's a couple other big videos coming. We'll be talking about people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Alex Bowman, you name it. Other people like Chandler Smith, Eric Almirola, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer. We'll be talking about all those people in the coming weeks as we get closer to the start of the year and the season. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, buddy.